My name's Zavine. I'm 26, and I used to think the worst thing in life was being invisible in your own home. But it's not. The worst thing is when they finally see you. And they laugh. I grew up in a family where your value was measured by how loud you laughed at dinner and how many followers you had on social media. My little sister, Mia, was perfect by their standards. Blonde, charming, and loud enough to drown out any silence. I was the quiet one. The girl who read books instead of posing for selfies. The one who wrote her feelings in a cheap spiral-bound diary instead of blasting them out in Instagram captions. I didn't ask for much. I worked part-time at a dusty old bookstore and spent nights in my room writing short stories and journaling. That little laptop of mine. It was secondhand, cracked screen, battery barely holding on. But it held my entire world. My thoughts, my heartbreaks, my hope that maybe one day I'd publish something real. But I guess quiet dreams aren't worth much in a house like ours. It started the night before Mia's birthday. I'd just gotten home from a double shift, and all I wanted was to curl up in bed and write a little. But when I opened my bedroom door, something felt wrong. My journals were scattered across the bed, pages torn out, underlined in red Sharpie. And there she was, Mia, sitting cross-legged like a queen on her throne, holding my diary in one hand, my laptop in the other. "You really think this crap matters?" She sneered, flipping through the pages. "All this whining about how nobody loves you. Boo-hoo, Zavine. Grow up." I froze. For a second, I thought maybe she'd read something embarrassing and teased me like she always did. But then she stood up, held my laptop over her head, and, before I could say a word, slammed it down onto the hardwood floor. The sound cracked through my chest like a gunshot. I ran over, fell to my knees, and grabbed what was left of it. The screen was split straight down the middle. Keys popped off like broken teeth. Months of writing. Gone. I looked up at her, tears already burning my eyes. "Why would you do that?" And that's when I heard it. Laughter. Not just hers. My mom's, from the kitchen doorway, holding a glass of wine. My dad, chuckling behind his newspaper like he was watching a sitcom. "She's overreacting again," Mia called out. "It's just a dumb computer." Mom waved a dismissive hand. "Honestly, Zavine, if your life falls apart over a laptop, maybe you need a reality check." And Dad, without even looking up, muttered, "Back in our day, people wrote things down. Try using a pen and paper next time." Something in me cracked that night. I wanted to scream, to tell them that my writing was the only thing keeping me sane in this house. But no words came. Just this cold, suffocating silence. I picked up the pieces of my laptop, one by one, and left the room without another word. But Mia wasn't done. She followed me to the hallway, voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, and by the way," she smirked, "I took a few screenshots of your little sob stories. Thought my followers could use a laugh." That stopped me dead in my tracks. She didn't just destroy my work. She was planning to humiliate me. Publicly. I turned to her, calm but shaking inside. "If you post those, I swear." She cut me off with a grin. "What are you gonna do? Write about it in your diary." I walked out of the house that night with nothing but my cracked phone and the clothes on my back. No laptop. No safety net. Just this bitter electric promise burning in my chest. They think I'm weak, but they've got no idea what I'll do when I've got nothing left to lose. And trust me, this wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. Or the one after that. Turns out, losing your entire creative life in one swing of your sister's perfectly manicured hand has a way of keeping you awake. For the first 2 weeks, I crashed on the couch at my coworker Lisa's apartment. Lisa didn't ask too many questions, which I was grateful for. She just tossed me a spare key and said, "Microwave's broken, but the Wi-Fi's decent." Honestly, that was the closest thing to kindness I'd felt in months. By day, I worked double shifts at the bookstore, shelving romance novels I didn't have the heart to read anymore. By night, I hauled my tired body to the 24-hour campus library downtown. They didn't check student IDs after 9 p.m. I'd sit there until morning, hunched over a battered desktop, rewriting every story I could remember, every half-formed thought from my ruined files. It wasn't the same. You can't recreate the version of yourself that wrote those words the first time. But I had to try, because if I didn't, Mia would have stolen the last good thing I had left. Meanwhile, life at home went on as if nothing happened. Mia threw a huge birthday bash the weekend after. I saw it on Instagram. Her cake alone probably cost more than what I made in a month. My parents were in the background of her pictures, smiling like proud hosts, raising their wine glasses like nothing was broken. They didn't call me once. Not to check where I was staying. Not to ask if I was eating. Not even to fake an apology. But I wasn't surprised anymore. I was done expecting kindness from people who didn't believe I deserved it. Still, what Mia did next cut deeper than the laptop. A few nights later, Lisa shook me awake on the couch. Zavine, have you seen this? She asked, handing me her phone. There it was. My words. My exact words. Word for word from my diary, posted on Mia's social media. Except, she made it sound like her story. My sister has always been jealous of my light, she wrote. But I choose to forgive her, even when she tries to dim my shine. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments calling her so strong, such an inspiration, the bigger person. I couldn't breathe. She didn't just steal my laptop. She stole my pain, twisted it and wore it like a crown, and people ate it up. Part of me wanted to march back home, drag her off her pedestal, and scream the truth until someone, anyone, finally listened. But the other part of me, the quieter part, whispered, no, not yet. See, something had shifted in me. That night in the library, between exhaustion and heartbreak, I started reading about copyright law, about privacy violations, about emotional abuse that doesn't leave bruises but scars all the same. Turns out when someone steals your creative work, even if it's just a diary, it's still theft, especially if they profit from it. And Mia? Oh, she'd started getting brand deals from her story of resilience. Companies paying her to post about mental health awareness she bought with my suffering. So I started collecting receipts, screenshots, timestamps, archived versions of every post she made with my words. I backed them up in cloud folders and email drafts, hidden behind passwords she didn't know. But I didn't stop there. I remembered how Mia used to brag about faking brand partnerships, about staging charity work photo shoots at soup kitchens she never donated to. I quietly messaged a few local nonprofits asking if Mia had ever contributed like she claimed. The silence was deafening. Piece by piece, I was building something stronger than anger. I was building proof. And then the universe handed me the biggest piece of all. One night, while scrolling through an old backup drive, I found something I'd forgotten existed. A voice recording. It was from months ago, when Mia had stolen my phone and accidentally hit record during one of her brag sessions. On that file, clear as day, she laughed to a friend. I could post Zavine's darkest secrets and still come out the victim. No one's gonna believe her anyway. She's just the weird, sad girl with a diary. My blood turned to ice. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was character assassination. And Mia? She wasn't going to stop until she'd burned down every part of me I was trying to rebuild. I stared at that recording, hands shaking, heart pounding. This was it. The weapon she never thought I'd have. But the question was, when and how should I use it? I spent 2 weeks staring at that recording, listening to Mia's voice drip with smugness, over and over again. No one's gonna believe her anyway. She's just the weird, sad girl with a diary. And maybe that's what finally snapped something inside me. For so long, I let their version of me define who I was. The sad one, the bitter one, the one who didn't fit in. But what if I didn't need them to believe me? What if I made them believe the truth? The chance came sooner than I expected. Mia posted a story one Friday night, all dolled up on some charity event's red carpet. The caption read, "Giving back is what matters most. Thankful for my family who taught me compassion." Compassion. From the same family who laughed when she smashed my life's work on the floor. That's when I knew. This wasn't just personal anymore. She was lying to thousands of people, building a career out of my broken pieces. So I drafted an email. Simple. Director. Subject, possible misrepresentation, Mia R. Attached, screenshots of her stealing my diary entries. A side-by-side of her posts and my original writing. And the voice recording. I sent it to the organizers of the charity, the sponsors tagged in her post, and the production company behind the talk show she was about to appear on. I didn't add a single word of accusation. I didn't have to. The receipts spoke for themselves. At first, it was quiet. Too quiet. I went to work, stocked shelves, tried to focus on anything but my racing heart. But 3 days later, it all blew up. Lisa burst into the bookstore waving her phone. "Dude, did you see this?" There it was. My sister's face plastered across social media, but this time under headlines like "Fake Advocate," "Influencer accused of stealing personal stories." Comments poured in. Some still defended her, of course. But others, they started connecting the dots. The copy-paste captions, the staged charity shoots, the sudden rise from nowhere. Mia went dark, deleted her stories, turned off comments. And then the phone rang. It was my mom. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Her voice was sharp, panicked. "What did you do to your sister?" she hissed. "What did she do to me?" I shot back. "She's our family, Zavine. Families protect each other." I almost laughed. The irony was suffocating. "You mean like when you protected me?" She went quiet for a beat, then cold as stone. "Take it down. Apologize. Fix this mess you made." I hung up without another word, but the real explosion came the next morning. I woke up to find an email from the talk show's producer. He thanked me for the evidence. Said they had been considering featuring Mia as a speaker on resilience. But after reviewing the material, they withdrew the invitation. And one more thing, they wanted me to speak instead. At first, I thought it was a prank. Me, the invisible sister, on national TV? But they were serious. They wanted my version of the story, the real one. I sat there, staring at the screen, heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs would crack. I didn't want fame. I didn't want revenge headlines. I just wanted the truth in the open air where no one could twist it again. So I said yes. But here's where it gets worse. 2 hours later, Mia texted me. First time she'd reached out since breaking my laptop. It wasn't an apology. It was a threat. "Congrats on your little moment. Enjoy it while it lasts. I know what you did last summer, remember? Should I tell them about it?" My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what she meant. A secret I'd buried so deep I thought no one could ever dig it up. She was going to drag me down with her. And honestly, she might have had the ammo to do it. So now the question wasn't just how to tell my story. It was how much of myself I was willing to expose in the process. Because the next move wasn't just hers. It was mine. I stared at Mia's text like it was a ticking bomb. "I know what you did last summer." And the worst part? She wasn't bluffing. Last summer, during a low point, I'd quietly dropped out of a writing fellowship without telling anyone. It was supposed to be my big break, but my mental health hit rock bottom. Instead of pushing through, I ghosted the program. I shut down. I spent 2 months hiding in my room, lying to my parents, pretending I was still attending. If Mia exposed that, she could spin it however she wanted. Lazy, unstable, unreliable. And in a world that only sees the headlines, who's going to read the footnotes about depression and burnout? I spent an entire night pacing the tiny apartment, fighting the panic crawling up my throat. Part of me wanted to cancel the talk show appearance, disappear again, let her win, like always. But something about that felt too easy. Too familiar. I didn't crawl out of hell just to hand her the match to burn me down again. So I took a breath, opened my laptop, the one from the library, borrowed but mine in spirit, and I wrote a new speech. One that didn't erase my flaws. One that owned them. I emailed the producer and said I wanted to talk about failure, about how sometimes resilience isn't rising gracefully. It's face planting, quitting, and crawling back up when nobody's watching. If Mia wanted to weaponize my scars, I'd show them myself. She couldn't blackmail someone who already confessed. But I wasn't done yet. See, in all this chaos, I hadn't told you one thing. Mia wasn't just stealing my words. She was also stealing my money. Months ago, while I was still living at home, Mia had used my social security number to apply for a student grant she didn't qualify for. I found out by accident when I checked my credit score last week and saw an unfamiliar loan application in my name. I froze at first. Then I started digging. Emails, online forms, bank statements linked to her email but my SSN. She didn't just ruin my writing career, she committed identity fraud. And I had proof. So while Mia was prepping her next move, I was prepping mine. I met with a legal clinic downtown. A young attorney named Marcus listened to my whole story without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back, crossed his arms, and said, "You're sitting on a legal grenade." Ready to pull the pin? I wasn't sure if I was, but I was more sure than I'd ever been. The day of the talk show arrived faster than I expected. Bright lights, makeup I didn't recognize myself in, and cameras pointing straight at me. When the host asked about my struggles, I told them. I told the world. About the summer I quit on myself. About the family that laughed when I broke. About the sister who wore my pain like an accessory. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The story was enough. The truth was enough. I walked off that stage lighter than I'd felt in years. But just as I was pulling out my phone to call Lisa and thank her for everything, another notification popped up. A lawsuit had been filed that morning. Against me. Mia beat me to it. She filed for defamation. She claimed emotional distress, career damage, and, you guessed it, claimed I had stolen her writing. My jaw dropped. It wasn't just a threat. She actually did it. I stood there on the sidewalk, frozen, as cameras rolled past, reporters chatting about inspirational stories of survival, while my whole world tilted sideways again. I had receipts. I had proof. But now I was fighting this battle in court, on public record, where reputations live or die in headlines. And suddenly, I realized something chilling. She didn't care if she won. She just wanted me destroyed in the process. But what she didn't know was that I still had one final move she could never see coming. And I was about to play it. The thing about lawsuits is, they're slow. They don't explode like social media drama. They simmer, drag, suffocate you in paperwork and court dates while your life keeps moving, or falling apart. For weeks, I juggled working, prepping my defense, and quietly dealing with the whispers. Some people believed Mia's defamation claim, others didn't. But the worst part was knowing my parents had picked a side, and it wasn't mine. They posted a family photo during that time, smiling in front of our old house, captioned, "Families stick together, even when one of us loses their way." I wasn't in the picture. But here's what Mia miscalculated. I'd already lived through the worst part. Losing my family, my home, my peace. She couldn't take what I'd already rebuilt without them. I counterfiled with Marcus's help, presented every screenshot, every time-stamped draft, and the pièce de résistance, that voice recording. The court hearing wasn't public, but the documents became part of the legal record. And wouldn't you know it? Local journalists love digging through public court files. One morning, I woke up to my name trending again. But this time, under headlines like, "Aspiring author defends against false claims, exposes family fraud scandal." Turns out, that little loan Mia took out under my name, it wasn't just identity theft. It was federal fraud. And the scholarship committee she lied to? They pressed charges independently. The fallout was fast and brutal. Brand deals dropped her overnight. Her college expelled her for academic dishonesty. And worst of all, her name, the one she'd worked so hard to polish, was now forever tied to fraud charges and plagiarism. My parents tried to do damage control. I heard from an old neighbor that they'd started telling people I set Mia up out of jealousy. But at that point, no one was buying their version anymore. I didn't gloat. I didn't post victory speeches or clapback tweets. I just moved on. The publisher I'd spoken to months ago finally greenlit my book. It wasn't about Mia. It was about healing, about how surviving sometimes means walking away from the people who taught you pain in the first place. The day it hit the shelves, I hosted a quiet launch event at the local library. A few friends, some former coworkers, even Lisa sat in the front row grinning like a proud sister. And then, something I didn't expect. 2 weeks later, my parents sent me an email. No subject line, just 3 sentences. We heard about the book. We hope you're happy now. Don't contact us again. For the first time in my life, I read their words and didn't feel small. I felt free. Mia never apologized. But one afternoon, months later, I walked past a community center where I saw her setting up chairs for an outreach program. No cameras, no followers. Just her and a bunch of folding tables. I didn't stop to say anything. Sometimes the best revenge is living a life where their approval means nothing anymore. If I learned anything from this mess, it's this. Family isn't who shares your last name. It's who shows up when your life falls apart and doesn't call you dramatic when you cry. And maybe we have to stop waiting for the people who broke us to be the ones who fix us. Anyway, that's my story. If you've been through something like this, family betrayal, rebuilding from nothing, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Sometimes sharing it out loud is the first time it stops feeling like shame. And if this story meant something to you, maybe stick around. I'm still figuring life out, one story at a time.